fellow teachers of Reddit. What experiences have you had with dumb parents? Story 1. I substituted in a HS for 5 months to finish off the year for a teacher who was on maternity leave. So, I had a student high school senior who never did any homework accounted for 35 of the total grade. I would constantly send emails to the parents who always responded that they'd deal with it, spoke with the parents at conferences, and kept the admin in the loop. 1 week before finals, I sent a notice home that she needed to get a 97 on the final to pass the class and get the credits she needed for graduation, and I even gave her one more chance to turn in past homework for 50 credit. FF to the final, she barely gets a passing grade, and therefore can't get the credits, can't graduate, can't enlist in the Air Force like she had intended. The parents come into the office of the school screaming at everyone that they had no clue it would come to this. When we all sat down in an office with the guidance counselor, principal, department head, and myself, I reviewed the several notices with them, explained that she had multiple opportunities to gain credit, etc., but refused to do anything. Turns out the wife was hiding the emails and information from her husband and wanted her daughter to fail so she wouldn't join the Air Force and move away from home. Last I heard from the situation, they're not together. The daughter is working at Lowe's, never finished HS, and has 2 kids and multiple arrests for selling drugs. There's a reason I didn't want to pursue teaching as a career after that. Story 2, just before Christmas break, I had the students hand in a paper. One of the students was missing a page, so I pulled out the contact sheet that I had the students fill out at the beginning of the year and gave a call. The student's father picked up the line, said, "Thanks for calling. We will definitely get that extra page into you." The next day, the student's mother comes storming into the classroom. She happens to be an education assistant at the school. She demands to know where I got that number. I said that her son had put it on the contact sheet. Apparently, the parents are separated. She proceeded to tell me that I had no right to call that number, and that when there's a problem with her son, only SHE has the right to know. I told her, "Thanks, that's good to know." That's when she dropped this bombshell. If he hands something in that is incomplete, you fail him, you got that, fail. Then she walked out of the classroom. This coming from a person who is supposed to help children succeed. Story 3, I had a student who I caught plagiarizing in an essay. The 0 was going to cause the student to not graduate on time. The parent called a meeting, but I had proof of the action thanks to Turnitin. I explained the assignment, and I showed the parent my proof, and that is when she said, "But I wrote that part of the essay, not my daughter, so she didn't cheat, I did." Story 4, I taught English in Colombia for a summer and had some pretty interesting interactions. One particular set of parents insisted that their son was a brilliant genius who didn't need to study. He rarely came to class, and therefore could barely speak any English while the rest of his classmates could speak full, basic sentences. I emailed his parents my concerns for his apparent lack of motivation, and they told me that he could speak perfect English and didn't need to come to class, so they let him skip. Finally, parent-instructor conference's time came, and I asked them to bring their son. I asked him in English, "How is English class coming along?" He stared blankly and just started crying. "Told you so." Story 5, 4-day weekend. Come back on Monday. To 50 emails, generally we have 10 to 15 in my group. My voicemail has 10 messages. I had not gotten a voicemail once in my entire time at my school. Parent flipping out that their student is failing. How stupid I was for not allowing their student to do the work. How ridiculous I was that I could not give her student another chance. Last email and voicemail is husband apologizing because I am not the teacher of this student. Got confused with last name, I guess. Story 6, I wouldn't call them dumb parents, but parents who are in denial about who their child actually is break my heart. For instance, we had a student who had an abundance of markers for autism and was in 6th grade. All the teachers on the student's team agreed they ought to tell the parents their concerns and suggest the student be tested so we could offer more resources for the student. The teacher who spoke with them was very polite, very kind in suggesting they try and figure out how best to help the student, and the mom literally screamed at her that nothing was wrong with her child and that she would never get the student tested. Her husband even tried to tell her that it wasn't a bad thing and that they should try and see if it would help since his teachers who knew him thought it might. The mom started cussing out the teacher and stormed out. Story 7, I teach in a college. So the students are almost always 18 or over. A couple years ago, one student's mother called the chair of my department to complain on behalf of her daughter about the difficulty of some work listed on my syllabus. My chair was baffled, asked the mother if her daughter was over 18. The mother replied that her daughter was 20 years old. My chair explained that it was then her daughter's responsibility to either speak with me directly or withdraw from the course. That's it. That's all. It's college. People only go if they want to. No one's mother could do anything about the workload. Story 8, my wife is a teacher. One time she had a parent blame her for giving the student autism. Edit, my wife isn't autistic. The student was evaluated and diagnosed by a third party. Mom refused to believe this. Story 9. A pre-K student's mother got in my face. She towered over me and yelled at me for telling her daughter she was not a real princess. This was in front of her daughter, other children, and other parents. The director of the school wanted me to apologize to the woman. I refused. Story 10. My uncle was a teacher in a school for troubled kids for about 10 years elementary. One day a kid starts talking about how the plants in there are all over his house. My uncle, being a longtime surfer and product of the 70s, didn't say anything at first. Then, during a parent-teacher conference, the parents are just being flat-out uncooperative. It ain't my son's fault. You failing him, dad on you. He do his homework, I see him. Ma'am, he needs more FOC. Now, you don't know what you are talking about. How do you even be a teacher when you don't know sheet? My uncle, I know you're cultivating marijuana at the same home where your son lives. BOM. He said she got a look on her face that was just priceless, like she just her pants. Then he told her, get rid of the plants today and sit down with your son and help him with his work or else. Story 11. Not sure if this counts as dumb, but I had one parent come to school, drop off her child, and physically assault an elementary schooler she believed was bullying her child before I could stop it. That was scarring for everybody involved. Story 12. Parent thought all the FS the student was receiving stood for Fantastico. My teacher friend almost lost it in their face. During parent-teacher conference, edit fix typo. Story 13. I work as an assistant in an art studio, and we have a 7-year-old with seizure syndrome, except that I'm pretty sure she doesn't. I'm pretty sure she has one seizure once, and her mom freaked out and had her diagnosed. Now this little girl loved to terrorize her mother. She's told me that. She's looked up at me with her big brown eyes and gigantic, toothy smile, and told me that she likes messing with her mom and making her angry because her mom is too protective and one of those hovercopter parents. So this little girl just jerks her mom every which way, and it's hilarious because her mom is just like that. Overbearing, extremely protective, and really, really bossy. She'll tell the main teacher, and I had to teach her daughter how to draw and how many colors to use, etc., etc., etc. But we don't have to retaliate or even say anything because her daughter does it for us. That little girl is fantastic. Story 14. Taught college. So my story is nice. Had a student failing horrible 10, but would not drop, whatever, not my dime, not my problem. Anyway, grades come in, and I guess his mother has his password to his account, or perhaps he just told her his grade F, obviously, and I get an angry email insisting that there's no way he could have failed pre-calculus because, my God, his father is an engineer, and the student wants to be an engineer, and he just has to be good at math. The best part is, when you turn 18 and go to college, you're treated as an adult, even if you don't act like one. And there's a little box you can check that says, allow my parents to see my records. Most kids don't check it, and by law, I am not allowed to release any records to anyone, even parents. So I politely informed her that her son is considered an adult, and I was not allowed to release any records, and that she would have to contact him. Of course, this prompted a long, "I'm going to get you fired" email that I forwarded to my dean, who came to my office for a long laugh. I actually feel pretty bad for the kid. Having a helicopter mom like that at that age would do him no favors. Story 15. Why do my children have to study RE? They're not religious. I always provide the same response. They don't live in the past, but they have to study history. It's amazing how many parents don't understand that it's important to know what other people believe and how it affects the way they live their lives, even if those beliefs are not shared by the students learning about them. Story 16. Not me, but from a coworker of mine. She informed a parent that her third grader was struggling with multiplication and division. She suggested that the parent work with the child on these skills. The parent refused because she never learned how to multiply or divide. Therefore, it had no practical use, and so she didn't see the big deal. Sigh. Story 17. My mother is a K-12 teacher for a charter school that does homeschooling with a teacher checking in and reviewing things about once a week. It's meant for students who have difficulty in the public school system, which can range from dropouts to super smart kids to non-English speakers and parents who don't have the time to do full homeschool. I used to help with grading the math and science stuff, so I have tons of stories. One parent during the school year kept taking her daughter on trips to different countries and then asking my mother to extend her work. We're talking about 5 or 6 trips during the year. That would be fine if it was laid out at the start of the school year and they could schedule accordingly. But this parent would make these trips spontaneously. Like, in a few days, we're going to Russia. So she can't meet you next week like we scheduled 2 days ago. Another parent really pissed off my mother. 2 kids, brothers, both seniors almost done with high school. All that was left was some sort of state testing done in a classroom. One brother shows up, the other isn't there. My mom proctor for the exam asks where his brother is. He replies, he didn't feel like coming. She tells him that this is all he needs to graduate. So text him and get him to come here. He doesn't show. Halfway through the test, the kid's mother storms in the door, yelling at my own mother, telling her off for making her son feel ashamed and humiliated. She flips a table over, no joke, grabs her son that's there who looked like he wanted to die. Keep in mind he's a senior, like 17 years old or so, and storms out the door. Both brothers failed to get their HS degree, as neither had completed the state test. The crazy mom then writes a scathing email to my mother's supervisor, talking about how she had been lying to her, disregarding her problems and her children's education, and attempting to sabotage their chance at graduation. I have more. May post them up later if anyone is interested. Story 18. I had a 5th grader blow up on me, shouting and screaming in the hallway. This was sort of the final straw for him. He had a long history of verbal abuse of staff in the school, and he was suspended for 6 days. State law allows the parents to have an informal meeting with the teacher and the principal of the school. Mom and Dad come into this meeting with myself, the principal, and the guidance counselor. Principal introduces everyone. Mom interrupts, saying she has a major concern that needs to be addressed immediately. She accused the principal of being an imposter and demanded that everyone in the room take out their driver's licenses to prove that we are who we say we are. We all refused, and she battled about this for 10 or so minutes. Over the course of the next 45 minutes, she ranted about how the principal was an imposter and that this imposter principal, myself, and the superintendent were involved in a conspiracy to remove her son from the school. I think I could expose this to her cringe. Story 19. Oh lordy. Where to start? I teach 11th grade 1 SAT in an IEP special ed meeting. The parents wanted all of these accommodations for the student, even though we kept bringing up his daily weed habit. The accommodations still got on the plan, with a promise from him to cut back. 2 parents asking us how to parent their child. He gets upset when I take his Xbox 3. A kid kept forgetting his backpack. I asked him if he had a cell phone or shoes. Obviously he did. So I told him to put those items in his backpack when he gets home. His mom thought I was a genius. For one parent was exasperated that their child with ADHD wasn't doing college-level work. 2 minutes into a phone conference with a mom, she compared her son with her other kids and lamented that her son wasn't as good at school as they were. 6. This is the saddest. I have a deaf student. On parent-teacher night, the student's parents come in my class with her. I quickly deduced that the mom and the dad do not know sign language. We talked about her progress and her want to go into medicine. I had to convince the dad she was capable. He kept talking her down and demanding she speak. This is a majority of my parent interactions. I would say 13 are normal, but yield no change. Story 20. Had 2 girls in my English class who obviously hated each other. They would exchange glares, talk a little too loudly about each other while in the same vicinity, etc. I talked to them about it separately, and they both responded with, I hate that stupid, notified admin of situation called parents. Next day, they decide to fight it out in class. After breaking it up, I find out that girl 1 was accusing the other girl of wearing butt pads to make her look better. After discussing it with her parents, girl 1's mom told her that only hoes wear butt pads and that she should do something about it. The butt pad girl 2 swore she wasn't wearing butt pads and that it was all natural after telling her parents about it. They advised her to up that for talking, and that's how you end up with a fight in class over butt pads instigated by parents. Story 21. Parents' evening. 1 is above target, 2 is on. 3 is below parent. Why has my child got a 3 for academic achievement? Because they're working 2 grades under what they should be getting. Parent, but why has she got a 3? Me, silent sigh, because she got an E on her test, parent, but he does not mean to fail me. For her it does, parent, yeah. But it shouldn't be a 3, a circle, a horrible, horrible circle. Repeat 3 times. Story 22. I've had a parent tell me that her child will be late to class every day because the street lights aren't on when she comes to school. The street lights aren't on because the sun is up. Enablers, worthless enablers. Story 23. My mom teaches early childhood education, basically 5 to 6-year-olds. One of them had major signs of autism. My mom said it seemed like it, and after reading several books on the subject, I thought so too. This also helped spawn my idea for an autism-friendly restaurant, but we'll talk about that later. Primarily, he had the basic signs such as a lack of imagination, social skills, and he never ate anything other than a PB and J sandwich. He would scream if offered otherwise. He also always had to be on a schedule. Since I walked to that school from my school, I always played with him. We would go to the unused library and play piano. I taught him to play songs like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. He loved it. He would tell me he loved piano. We decided to let his parents know. They denied it all, so my mom decided to bring the school in, had him observed. Sure enough, the psychologist agreed with us. He is in 1st grade now. It's my most heartwarming memory I have. I saw him at Walmart. He took me to the toy section, found one of those demo pianos, and played Mary Had a Little Lamb. His parents bought him a toy piano and showed him how to read the music. He is getting treatment now. am crying while writing this. I miss you, little bro. As for my idea, it'd just be a colorful restaurant, simple food, friendly people, same waitresses, etc. TLDR taught autistic kid to play piano and excels ahead of his class. May skip a grade. Story 24, our AP US history teacher was going to quit teaching after this year. He didn't tell us this until right before the AP test, and luckily we reignited his love for teaching. Again, he told us this because had become disillusioned with the whole routine, I guess. He's the only AP teacher who doesn't curve tests, and his tests are the hardest between the three APUSH teachers. So a lot of kids with his class end up losing their 4 zeros. So apparently kids' parents were trying to get him fired for it or something. I thought that was pretty crazy. He's a really nice guy too. For me, someone who really dislikes history memorization is tedious. His class ended up being my favorite class. Story 25, I had a parent who insisted that her daughter be allowed to make up work after her child missed 42 days of school. Luckily, I was able to hand that one off to administration. Story 26, we had a parent instigate an investigation into bullying, formal complaint, restorative meetings, etc. because her son was on the playground after school, and when one of the older children wanted to get past him, he said, "Excuse me, little one." She said that by not using his name, the older child didn't know it. He was bullying her son. Story 27, my teacher friend busted one of her kids for cheating and then went and informed the parents. The mom actually called a local radio station to complain about the teacher. Luckily, the radio station and the callers thought the mom was crazy as well. Story 28, I don't want to call any parents dumb in my experience. They're mostly doing the best they can for their kids, even if that best isn't what we'd hope for. However, I did have a student who came to my student teaching classroom 2 grades below reading level and similarly behind in other subjects. She really wanted to learn, but she had some cognitive issues that didn't qualify her for special ed, but meant that she required a lot of time and personal attention to learn well. For that entire school year, I worked individually with her before and after school, while she was waiting for the bus or after she had been dropped off, and often during her recess in Argum Library, which she asked me to do because she wanted to learn and wanted the one-on-one attention. She improved markedly in reading and in writing, which is what we were concentrating on. She wasn't caught up at the end of the year, but she was of a lot closer. She failed the year, but because she had a speech issue, her parents could decide to send her to the next grade anyway. I tried to convince her parents that she should be held back a year, because with another year of intensive help, which I was going to find a way to secure for her, I thought that she could be close to or on grade level and could possibly keep up with the other students after that. They refused because they didn't want the other students to make fun of her. I have no idea what happened after that because I moved to another state, but I bet it wasn't good. Story 29, not a direct interaction with the parents, but I feel it fits. I coordinate an internship program. I caught one of the students stealing. It wasn't a lot, a few packs of stride gum, but something like that makes us look bad to the employer, could have jeopardized the entire program. I explain everything to school administration, and the student gets suspended for 3 days. When he returns, he apologizes to me. I do a whole spiel that what he did was serious. And on a real job, if you're caught stealing, there are no second chances, and I had to promise the manager ID watch him like a hawk for the rest of the year. To lighten the mood up a bit, I asked him what he did over the 3 days of being suspended. His mom had taken him to the mall, bought him new headphones, a few shirts from Hollister and Abercrombie, and new PS3 game, which he played all the time. He was suspended for stealing. Story 30, my first year of teaching. I had a student who was constantly sleeping in class. I call home about it. And the mother said that he was always on his computer or watching TV at night, and she couldn't get him to stop. I was only 23 at the time and didn't feel confident enough to tell a parent how to be a parent, but if that happened now, I'd calmly tell the parent to go into the room and remove the offending technology. Story 31, I had a kid that was very angry, got in fights with kids and teachers and so on. I worked with this kid and we were making a lot of progress. His mom believes in not sharing your feelings and keeping things bottled up. So she told him not to talk to me about his feelings anymore. For a year, anytime I'd try to talk to him, he'd say, "My mom says I don't have to talk about me feelings, so I'm not going to," and I'd patiently tell him okay. He got progressively worse and had such a hard year that year. After he came back from summer, he came up to me and gave me a hug and told me thank you for helping him. The next year, he did amazing. I'm really happy for him, but his mom really stunted his growth with her own fears of being open and vulnerable. She never liked me and my hippie ways, haha. Story 32, when I was a student teacher, we were preparing for parent-teacher interviews. My cooperating teacher and the VPs had to have a discussion with me in regards to meeting with one particular parent. Basically, let my cooperating teacher do all the talking, usually be expected to take the lead, as I had been planning and teaching the course at this point for a while. Because if we say the wrong thing, it's entirely possible that the kid will be showing up to school with bruises the next day. Apparently, the administration had already been involved with this individual and police multiple times before. In the end, everything turned out okay, as far as I know. I believe the student went on to graduate middle school that year. Still something that sticks with me as a reminder that the profession isn't just lessons and grading. There's some real that goes down occasionally. Story 33, the dumbest parents I have experience with are really the ones I had no experience with. I generally have about 150 students any given quarter, and parent-teacher conferences twice a year. I never get more than 6 parents. This past quarter was my worst ever. 1 parent showed up. What bothers me even more is that I teach middle school, an age group that really doesn't want to be in school, in an inner-city district. Adding even more to students' drive, a complete lack of interest in your kids' education is the dumbest thing I can think of. Story 34, long story. Sure, a mother asked me, what exactly do Timmy, need to do so he won't plagiarize and get a 0 on the project? Yeah, right, I knew she had been doing his work all year, but I couldn't prove it. This was made even worse because she was my co-worker, a high school English teacher, and she didn't know how to avoid plagiarism. Story 35, not a teacher, but worked as a teacher's assistant tutor at an after-school program. While watching a group of 3rd graders, I had one male student tell another female student that he was going to suffocate her by sitting on her face and farting to make her taste his. He made the young girl cry. So I informed the teacher, and she told me to address it with the boy's mother when she came pick him up. I told the mother, and she laughed and thought it was funny, and he had done nothing wrong. She is easily the dumbest parent I have ever met. Story 36, I remember being 10 to 12 and having a student-led conference. It was going really well, awesome grades, lots of friends, but I noticed the women was being really mean to one of the teachers, and when my parents were talking to my teacher in private part of the conference, she screamed my son is smarter than every kid in this school. This work is just not what he was made for. He deserves better. I went to a $30K a year private school, and her son was very obviously disturbed in some way. Story 37, I strive to have a good relationship and listen well to my kids' teachers even though they are just in preschool, because they spend all day with my kids and know about how my kids act when I'm not there. In fact, their teachers' knowledge of my kids is invaluable precisely because they know what my kids are like when I'm not present. One thing the teachers do to make it easier to listen is to tell me the facts before we discuss opinions. Story 38, a mother asked me to give it to her straight about her child. I told her he was a threat to other students and a disruption to every class he's ever been in. She reported me to the district. Story 39, my mom is a kindergarten teacher. Just a few months ago, one parent asked her if it was all right if she came in and gave the kids henna tattoos for a class Christmas party. My mom decided to give the kids permission slips in order to participate and mentioned the tattoos would be about the size of a nickel and would be holiday themed. Another parent, upon reading the permission slip, came into the school and complained to the principal that my mother was trying to turn the kids Muslim. The principal essentially told her she was a moron and to off. Story 40, not me, but a situation that happened in my school. We get a new student the last week of May with only 4 weeks of school left in this school year. This student has only attended 12 weeks of school due to school anxiety. He has a whole team of professionals, his mother, and a one-on-one aide that work with him. This is also his 3rd school, kicked out of his 2 previous ones, and he's in 2nd grade. He had a generally good first day, fist bumped his teacher, did a little bit of stuff, then went home and told his mother that it was the worst day in his life. Mom comes to school all up in arms about how we're ruining her precious little snowflake. The next day, his classroom teacher tried to get him to do some writing with her. The kid looks straight in her eyes and says, "My mother said I don't have to do anything. Are you calling my mother a liar?" Cue mother the next day, all up in arms, because the teacher called my precious snowflake a liar. So, due to his school anxiety, he doesn't have to do any work, interact with teachers, make any movement whatsoever except sit like a lump in his seat. The teacher, when giving an assignment to the class, has to specify to him, but you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. It's by far the stupidest situation I've ever witnessed. TLDR 2nd grader who is professionally advised to not do any work at school because of bats hit crazy mother. Story 41, edit, not real names. My mom is Kay, and the other teacher is a Vin. Thanks to Fallsbyler, I'm a little late, but hey race one my mom told me when I asked her the question. It was her first year teaching 5th grade, and she gave her kids a spelling test. She caught a student cheating on that test by changing his answers after grading and insisting it was there before despite eraser marks, and decided to talk to the student and the parents. My mom is really laid back and often would give her students second chances that the other teachers, who are all stricter than her, would not give. So anyways, my mom calls the parents and says, "Hi, Mr. Smith. "In calling to inform you, I caught your son cheating on a test. Since this is his first time, I will allow him to retake it tomorrow during recess in my class." The dad was furious. He started yelling that his son would never do such a thing and how my mom was a horrible teacher and started cussing her out. So my mother asked another teacher who had been teaching for a while for help. The other teacher decided to get the principal involved and show the dad how his tantrums will not get him what he wants in this school and how his childish actions make it worse for his son. The principal called the dad and said, "Hello, Mr. Smith. Due to your disapproval of KS teachings and punishments, we feel it would be best for your son to go to Mrs.'s class instead." The dad, thinking he got his way, agreed. What the dad did not know was that the son's new teacher was the strictest in the school and was infamous among the kids. So the boy switched classes, but he was in tears because my mom was the kind of teacher who gave out prizes and never yelled. And now he was leaving that class. The son actually was okay with taking the retake, but the dad was the one who refused. My mom felt pretty bad for the kid. After the end of the day, the teacher comes up to my mom and tells her what she told the father. The teacher called and informed the father that the son will get a 0 on the test he took in my mom's class, will not be getting a retake, and that the son will have no recess for 2 weeks. And the next day, guess who called asking to have their kid put back in my mom's class? The dad probably learned his lesson, and the son probably did too. Sorry if this isn't grammatically correct. I'm just tired, so I may be messed up. Story 42. I used to work at a daycare for kids aged 18 months, 3 years. There was one little 3-year-old boy that used to call all the teachers stupid and cunts. He also had extreme anger problems that led to violence towards the other kids. He would often hit, kick, spit, and choke out other kids. Despite this, he could be the absolutely sweetest boy and crave being held by teachers and one-on-one time where he could get full undivided attention. We all dedicated ourselves to making sure we gave him special time to work on these issues. His dad was in jail, and he would often talk about how scared he was to be put in prison and other issues at home. We discussed this with the mom and asked her to help with his anger by helping him find other ways of expressing it, as well as work on his swearing. All she said was she tries to work on his swearing, but he sees it on TV and she can't help that, and that he inherited his anger issues from his dad, who was both verbally and physically abusive towards her, hence why he was in jail. It was so frustrating to work with a woman who didn't think she could control what her 3-year-old son watched on TV, and was resigned to believing her son's anger could not be controlled because of his dad. As a 3-year-old, he was mirroring actions he had seen, and she didn't understand that by teaching the child proper behavior and outlets for his anger, it would drastically improve. Once Dad got out of jail, she pulled her son from school and moved to another state with the guy. Story 43. I don't know if this is really dumb, but weird I guess. I worked for a while as the assistant band director at a private high school, and one night, after a football game, the director and myself were sitting in his office talking. One of the members of the band booster organization came in and closed the door and asked to talk with us. We agreed and gave him our full attention. He then explained how he had a marvelous plan that would help recruit for the band, which was to fix the election for Homecoming Queen. He told us that we could send mailers to every senior male. Only seniors males got to vote for Homecoming Queen, encouraging them to vote for one specific band girl chosen by the band director, of course, and also some kind of incentive, such as coupons or monetary contribution. The band director and myself shared puzzled looks over his incredibly thought-out plan on how to fix the Homecoming Queen race. He was convinced that through this, we would raise awareness of the band program, and then our numbers would skyrocket. We didn't tell him no, but we didn't tell him yes. Instead, we told him we would think about it. And he left the office. After he left, the band director looked at me and said, "What the no?" Story 44, I've mentioned this story before, but here goes. I was a TA in a 3rd grade classroom. We had the parents of an African-American child request to meet with us at the start of the year. They informed us they did not want their son to learn anything about African-American history. Nothing. They did not want him to learn about slavery, the Civil War, civil rights, MLK. Nada. They felt this knowledge would hinder him in life and hold him back from reaching his full potential. The teacher and I were shocked, but had to do as the parents wished. That February, we studied African-American history, as many schools in the U.S. do. Each time we had a lesson, we had to send that boy to the library to read for 45 minutes. We couldn't tell him why or what we were doing in the classroom without him. We couldn't display any of our books or projects in classroom in case he saw them. It was so weird, and the poor kid felt so left out. I don't know whatever happened to him. He's probably in 8th or in 9th grade now, and for all I know, still has no clue about Martin Luther King, Jr. Edit. This was at a magnet elementary school with a predominantly African-American and Hispanic student base. The boy in question appeared normal despite whatever his parents were teaching him or neglecting to teach him at home. He had many friends, was extremely polite, and was crazy about Batman, so I'm assuming he saw some television. We had many other African American students in our classroom, majority of the students, in fact, and they were so excited come February. I mentioned the month because February is African American History Month in the U.S., and when most schools concentrate on it, they were begging to do biographies on famous African Americans. We couldn't display any of their posters, though, in case the one boy saw them.